Yeah, I threw a whole bunch of stuff at you.
It's okay.
I got going, and then I got going, and I got some stories for next year. So I had to actually tell myself to stop because there's only 5 Wednesdays in October, and I was like, I got the 5. So this month on Storytelling on the Plains, we're doing a bunch of spooky episodes. Hopefully they're spooky for y'all. I don't know. And if you're listening in the future, you can just ignore this bit. But Connor and I have been talking about a couple of upcoming episodes that we already recorded, but then we realized that we need to do spooky stories for October. So they're going to be on hold till November. So if you listen to these in the future, just ignore what I'm saying right now. And if you're listening to them as they come out, just know that when they come out in November, we actually recorded them in September. So
because we're starting this October 1st, actually, today.
Yes.
We're recording October 1st. So
yes. Yeah. And then as soon as we're done and you leave, I'll chuck everything on the computer and edit this episode. So we'll be a little late today because I usually set it for somewhere around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to go out. And whatever, that's life.
I love October. I really do.
Yeah.
And I started a couple weeks ago. I already got into the fun of it. I did the haunted corn maze at Billy Estes' park, and I was one of the spook people. That scared them. I had a great time.
Okay.
I think I nearly tripped and broke my ankles. Those corn mazes are hard to scare, and I've come to realize you get deep in there and you're like, oh crap, I might be lost. But I got a lot of people, and they had a great time. So awesome. And there's going to be another one. Not this. Maybe it's this weekend. I think I actually want to say it's next weekend. It might be this weekend.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if I'm going to be, I don't know if my ankles might not be up for this next time, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's harder to see the little, like, divots and changes in the land in the dark. So easy to twist an ankle.
Yeah, but the path itself is smooth. So for anyone wanting to go out there, I mean, it's perfectly smooth, perfectly great. The night before that was date night. They had a wonderful band come and play.
Sweet.
The drummer was, I think, the grandson of, I can't think of his name now. The Eagles. Oh,
yeah. Dude that was from here.
Yeah. So now we both can't think of his name.
Yeah.
I just had his name in my head. But anyway, the grandson of the drummer from the Eagles was... Oh, he was drumming. I don't know if the person that...
Oh, I was going to say, his dad wasn't a drummer. His dad was a guitar player.
He was the guitarist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's cool.
Yeah. Really neat.
We'll remember halfway through this episode, and one of us will just shout out the name.
I will. It's on the tip of my tongue.
And we're going to do things a little bit differently with these stories because when I found them online... we're going to do Native American stories, and all except for the last one is Lakota stories. And it's not like your regular horror stories that, spooky stories that you tell where you can inject things into them. So we're going to do a lot of reading of the stories, just because... I want to be respectful of the message they try to get across, because that's another thing. When we talk about, like we did the ghost ship last year over in Wyoming.
Yeah, we kind of poked at that one a bit. But this one's going to be different. We're not going to poke at this one. And this is more out of respect for the culture. Yes, and they're scary, but there's a lesson to be learned in this story, whereas our... I guess white folks stories. It's all about scaring the crap out of you. Ship. I don't know what the point with that was.
Yeah. Other than don't look at it because somebody's gonna die that you know. But all of the Lakota ones that I came across, there's a lesson in it. So I felt it was best that when we get to it, we'll just read the stories, and then we may have some comments, but
we We won't poke fun.
Yeah, there won't be too much poking fun.
Poking.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. We'll get back to the white folk tales later. We'll get into like Washington Irving and some Sleepy Hollow shit maybe next time.
Yeah, we got to find a headless horseman about
alley.
here.
Yeah, that's up near your woods.
Yeah, the story from Washington Irving took place in Terrytown, which is why I struggled with Terrytown when I moved here. Yeah, because they're spelled different. Mm-hmm. So when I moved here, I had a little bit of trouble with the name, but I eventually got it. Yeah, naming a town after yourself. So last year we did a bunch of other stories, and a couple of weeks ago, Connor suggested. Not suggested. He said, "Oh, I bet there's a bunch of Native American stories," and I go, "Yeah, there has to be."
Yeah, there has to be.
And so
not because it's Halloween, by the way. I mean, not just because the Native Americans, as far as I know, didn't recognize this time particular versus any other time.
Yeah,
but they had ghost stories.
Yes, and so I literally set everything aside for 10 days, and all I did was read and write. And came up with all of these. So hopefully people like those. I did find some really, really creepy stories, but they were from East Coast and West Coast tribes, so I didn't go to those ones because they're not our coverage area. I suppose maybe in the future we could do something like that. But anyway, I skipped those ones, and this year we're just concentrating on here. And like I said, for this year, I believe they're all Lakota stories, and there's one Northern Cheyenne story. And then when I had everything done and I emailed it to you, I found like 5 more. So they're bookmarked for next year. So pretty much all civilizations, bless you. Ooh, that was...
Excuse me again.
To our listeners, Sorry. That was a complete surprise to Connor because he just moved so fast away from the microphone. He was not expecting that one.
I'm sneezing. Sorry, guys. Kazoon tight.
So pretty much all civilizations throughout history have believed in ghosts or spirits, what have you. Some of the native stories we hear say that the ghosts are dangerous and you should not engage with them, even if they look like a loved one who has passed on, while others think ghosts might be loved ones who still serve the role of protector. It really kind of depends on the tribe and the story. And there are numerous ways people deal with hauntings. Some of the tribes just say be respectful, but also try these charms and spells and maybe some herbs. So they didn't really know what to do with the ghosts any more than we did. The Lakota, they're kind of big on don't mess with them.
That's very, as far as I've gathered, yes, it's very true, especially with the burial mounds that have been recovered and somewhat undisturbed and respected, somewhat not. I'll give an example. In Sioux Falls, where I used to live, there is a massive native burial ground in the middle of a public park. You're asked not to go on it. You're asked to be respectful, but it's a public park. And so enough said there,
Yeah.
People...
You're going to get your mix.
Yep. Stand on them. Don't even read the signs. I mean, it's not like it's gated by a wooden fence, a very primitive wooden fence. I mean, it's nothing like a barbed wire, and the signs aren't that big. But if you take the time to read the signs, you might not maybe be a bit more respectful and not go climbing on those hills.
Yeah.
Because they're right in the middle of the city. They're right in the middle of a park. For the life of me, I can't remember the name of the park, but it's actually right next to the zoo. Okay. The Sioux Falls Zoo. The burial mounds are just on the other side, and they're properly marked and everything. But
Yeah, humans.
As far as like staying away from. Yeah. We did not listen very well to that.
And throughout these series too, and I'll probably mention it every single episode, I'm going to try really hard not to mispronounce words. I'm not fluent in Lakota, so I might screw some things up, but hopefully not too bad. So our first story is called A Teton Ghost Story, and the Titanoan of the Oseti Sakowin Oate are the Sioux. That
was actually pretty good. If you did mispronounce that, I wouldn't know.
So Oseti Sakowin Oate. The Y is weird in Oate because you want to say the Y sound, and it's not the English Y sound. And I only know that because I've heard Lakota say it, so I try to mimic what they're saying. That word is translated as the people of the seven council fires. And in case I didn't mention before, which I don't think I did, the Sioux don't fear the spirits of the dead, but they don't mess with them, and they try to avoid interacting with them at all possible. So like if they see a spirit, they're not afraid of it. And I had
they're kind of like spiders or snakes or cockroaches. It's like they're scary, but
yeah,
I'm not scared of them, but avoid them.
Yes, yes. So the Sioux typically use some type of scaffolding as a burial. And probably the most famous you'll see, there is one picture of Crazy Horse's burial at the Spotted Tail Agency. That's typically how they buried you. And we can go into detail about that when we eventually get to the Spotted Tail Agency story. But there are other historical photos of scaffolding burials, but I think Crazy Horses is probably the most famous one. At least for me, it's the most famous one. If I see it, I'm like, oh, that one's Crazy Horse.
Yeah.
The rest of them... I haven't
seen a whole... I think I want to say I've seen a few other ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, the most famous one in my mind is that one.
That one. So the body remains on the scaffolding, open to the elements and the animals, and it remains there until only bones are left. And at this point, the spirit moves on toward the afterlife to join the ancestors. Some tribes, like the Mandan, believe we have 4 souls, and at least one of them hangs around the body. The stories are all slightly different, but the soul or the spirit hangs out near the body for one reason or another for a period of time. And I read several other tribes. I mean, the Mandan think you have 4 souls, and like 3 of them bugger off to
bugger off
heaven. Sorry, married to a British dude.
No kidding. That really came out there. Bugger off.
And then one hangs out around the body. And when I looked, that seems to be typical in the stories of many, many different tribes. Is that it hangs out for whatever reason.
But something important to mention here is that when these burials happened, they were not burnt.
No.
So there weren't like pyre burnings, which has been now done in some native tribes. They do that now. But I don't know if that was always a tradition or more by law they have to. They can't leave it out for carrying anymore.
Yeah, I think it's probably some law that was imposed on them because traditionally you went up there and you just stayed there till just the bones were left.
And it's something very unique to say because, I've heard that a lot, that there's burnings, but when you really study it, that's really kind of more of what we as Europeans did in the Vikings and stuff like that. We did pyre burnings, and that was more of our thing, not necessarily a native thing. I could be wrong that there might have been some tribes in America that did that, but this is actually what I've mostly seen is that they're just left.
Yep.
They're left to get picked by the animals.
Yeah. Oh, and we have added pressure now to get this all right because your mom told me she works with a lady that is Lakota, and she was going to recommend our podcast to her, and I'm like,
well, I would correct it.
But I do want to be correct.
We do this to be correct and not just to be, again, this is storytelling, and stories are interpreted many ways, and stories could be wrong, and I'd like to be corrected if we're not saying this right. So,
So, one, I want to make sure names are right to be respectful, because nobody likes their name said wrong, and two, like you said, my experience and education is they were put on top of the scaffolding, And that's why it was called a scaffolding and not a funeral pyre, because they didn't burn the body. That's something more recent. So, heck, I would love to have someone who's an expert just in that come and talk to us about it. You know,
definitely.
That would be awesome. So, also, if you met an ancestor in a dream or a vision, that's cool because they're probably imparting some wisdom to you. But if you see them when you're awake and you don't know them, that's really bad, because the only way out was to cut a deal with the spirit, which isn't a good thing to do either.
There's a good moral in life not to ignore people.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you hate to be an introvert in that time? It's like, I don't know you. I'm your sister. Oh. I was with you entirely. I don't know you. Crap.
Yeah. So for this version, because I'm going to read 2 stories today, and they're slightly different but similar themes, and it could possibly be a retelling of the same story with different interpretations. Like you said, everybody has their own interpretation of how things are. So I'm going to read from the text of Voices of the Winds, Native American Legends by Margot Edmonds and Ella Clark, which was taken from the J.O. Dorsey translation. So it wasn't even written in, it had to be translated into English from Lakota. So the Teton, and when I say Teton, this is the Sioux, the whole Sioux Nation. When you refer to them as Teton, it's one of those confusing things where both words are accurate and are describing the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm reading directly from the book, so I'm going to quote what was in the book. The Teton band flourished, and its people were healthy and strong because they ate plenty of buffalo meat. Usually when they camped for the night, a crier would go among the lodges and call, "There will be many buffalo tomorrow. Be on the alert." One day after the Tetons returned to their camp from a hard buffalo hunt, a young man announced that he wished to marry the most beautiful girl in the tribe, the chief's daughter. Her father said, "I will not give you my permission until you bring me many horses." So the young Indian set out in search of many wild horses, hoping to please the chief and win his beautiful daughter for his bride. While the young brave was away, his tribe abandoned their regular campsite and moved elsewhere. Later, the young Indian returned to the deserted camp with several captured horses. As it was late in the day, he thought he would take shelter nearby in a solitary lodge. At first, he could not find a doorway into the lodge because the sides were all covered halfway up with sod. Finally, he managed to make an entrance. Inside were 4 high posts that had been driven into the ground. The posts supported a kind of burial bed. On the bed lay a woman whose clothes were ornamental with elk's teeth. She turned her head, looking down at the young Teton brave. Oh, sorry. Already, you just broke into a place that's probably being prepared for burial. And is this woman dead? And she just looked at him. I don't know. He immediately recognized her as a member of his tribe, but now she was a woman ghost. They stayed there for a long time, and she became his wife.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
One day he said to himself, "I think I will go on a buffalo hunt." Although he did not speak aloud, the ghost woman knew his thoughts and said, "You are hungry for buffalo meat? Mount your horse and ride back to the bluffs. When you come to the buffalo herd, rush into the center of them and shoot the fattest one. Bring home the hide and buffalo meat, roast the meat, and bring them a share before you eat yours." She's a ghost and she wants some buffalo meat.
Yeah. So bring me a sacrifice kind of thing, right?
Yeah. The young Teton Indian brave left and followed Ghost Woman's instructions. When he reached the valley, he came to a large herd of buffalo. He charged his horse at full speed into the middle of them and shot the fattest one. He skinned it and cut up the meat, carrying the robe and meat upon his pack horse. He skewered a large piece of meat and roasted it until it was cooked enough. Then he took it to Ghost Woman, who was standing at the center of the lodge. Her husband was startled to see her standing there. Rows and rows of beautiful beadwork decorated her leather clothing. Already knowing what the young brave was thinking, she said, "Please do not be afraid of me." So he's there for a long time and never saw her stand before. But they became husband and wife.
She was very pretty.
Yeah, that had to be it. From that time on, they talked freely and planned what they would like to do. The young Indian brave said, "Why don't we begin our life together like our parents did when they were first married?" But the ghost woman replied, No, that would never do, because we will need to pitch our tent during the day and travel by night." The young brave wondered about this arrangement. That is how it happened that they traveled at night. Ghost Woman walked ahead with her head covered, never saying a word to her husband as they traveled. Her legs were invisible. She made no noise as she floated along, ghost-like. It's hard because I see the reaction on your face and I'm like, is he going to say something?
Well, actually, the only thing I'm very interested in the history point of the timeline of when this would be, because you've already mentioned a lot of very important things as far as timeline goes. The fact that he had a horse, and the fact that he shot him, which I assume he shot him with a gun. After all, I don't know how you would shoot a buffalo with one arrow and down him.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard, especially with a long bow. Which is what the natives would have had.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had compact bows. If you would have downed a buffalo with one shot of one arrow, you would have been a hell of a guy. So I assume they had a gun. So you have a gun and a horse. So this actually brings a very interesting timeline into the aspect. So this isn't necessarily a very, very old Native American story. This is more of the recent times. As far as, it would have been between I wouldn't even say the 1400s. I'd bring it up to the 1600s up until the 1800s. Around that time.
Yeah, at least mid-1600s,
Because
I
the
would
horses
think.
got introduced around the 1400s in Spain, but they wouldn't have gotten probably all the way up to the Lakota till probably closer to the 1600s.
I think it was the mid-1500s when
they would have
the Spaniards got up in this area.
And started trading horses, and horses got wild, and the Lakota would have respected them enough to ride them, learned how to use them, and then they had guns to use them how to hunt. It's a huge learning curve that went on during this time. So I think that's very interesting that this ghost story, as far as ghost stories go amongst the Lakota, would have been considered a modern ghost story. So, it's just interesting.
Yeah. Whenever the young Teton Indian brave thought about anything, Ghost Woman already knew what it was that he had in his mind. This is why the Teton Indians say, "Beware of ghosts, because ghosts know all things." They say ghosts know when the winds blow and which ones. Ghosts know when there will be snow. Ghosts know when there will be thunder and lightning. Ghosts are glad when the winds blow because they can float along more swiftly as they travel from place to place. I could see that happening. You don't have any legs to walk, so, And out here in western Nebraska, it's windy all the time. This is the way the Teton Ghost Woman and the young Teton Brave lived. Their tribal people never found them again. The chief's daughter wondered why her young brave never returned to her. Finally, the young brave also became a Teton ghost, floating along with the Teton Ghost Woman every night forever. So
interesting. It's
a
good story.
Yeah.
I don't know really what to make of it. Like, is there a moral to it? You think? Like, don't.
I think it was more of.
Don't give things to ghosts. Is that?
Yeah.
Don't
hang out with them, because he eventually, she had some kind of power over him, because he was bound and determined to marry the chief's daughter. And then he runs into Ghost Lady and never comes back and stays with her. So it's probably a lesson of, you can acknowledge the ghost is there, but don't interact with it, because now he spends his whole life with her, technically gets married, They don't have any kids, and he eventually becomes Ghost Man. I think that's the lesson there, but if that's what you want, if that's how you want to live your life, is with Ghost Woman, and that can somehow eat meat. Are we
really advocating ghost sexuality?
No. No. But I think that's the lesson of the story is, don't interact with the ghosts because you disappeared, man. This chief's daughter was in love with you because she's like, what happened? And he never came back. He just went and killed buffalo and ate buffalo meat and hung out with his ghost wife. Don't talk to ghosts. Not a good thing.
Either that or he just really didn't want to get married. It's like, yeah, sure. I'm coming. I'll be right back. I'm going to go out for smokes. Go hunt buffalo. I'll be back in a bit.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Yeah. and it opens more questions for me because how come nobody ever saw Ghost Woman? And then presumably they stayed together in their ghost life, so it's Ghost Man and Ghost Woman hanging out together. So how come no one ever reported that? I don't know. Anyway, on to our...
I thought we were being respectful towards the
I'm
stories.
I'm sorry.
I was really trying, and now you're making me laugh.
Okay, sorry.
You're saying Ghost Man, Ghost Woman too many times.
Well,
I'm sure they had a name.
Well, that's the story I came across. It was just Ghost Woman and Ghost Man. Yeah. And we'll get this out of our system right now because that one wasn't too scary. We'll be respectful of all the other ones because all the other ones are way more interesting.
I have been respectful.
We are, okay, we're just going to stop before we dig ourselves a hole and move on to our next story.
Why, if we dig a hole, we'll come back as ghosts? What are we worried about?
Yeah, I combined these two into one episode because it was they're similar in the ghost aspect, especially when you compare it to the other stories we're going to get to in the future. So this story is called The Man Who Wrestled with a Ghost, and it is a Lakota story somewhat similar to the last one, but there's lots of differences too. Sometimes this story is written as The Indian Who Wrestled with a Ghost, but they're the same tale, and it's one of the most well-known Native American stories, and I went with Man Who Wrestled with a Ghost because that's who I'm going to quote and read from, and it's the most commonly used of the two, but they are the two. I think it just depends on time frame whether it was the man or the Indian. It's still the same story. So here's a little bit of background to understand some of the things within the story before we get going. So I don't have to stop and explain it in the middle and pull you out of the story. Most tribes, like I said, warn against interacting with ghosts. The Pawnee believed the ghosts might try to lure you to the land of the dead. So that's why you shouldn't talk to them, because they're going to drag you to the land of the dead. The Lakota say that the ghost could damage you mentally and physically. So the ghost actually has some power over harming you. And according to the worldhistory.org website, the primary reason to avoid ghosts is because they are no longer the person one had known while they lived, and that they possess the answers and the secrets to what happens after death. And we're not supposed to know that. Some also believe the ghosts knew the future, and it would be dangerous for the living to have that information. It is said that this information doesn't always come freely, and what you must give to get that information will always be too much. So it's best to avoid ghosts. However, sometimes you don't have a choice in interacting with them. If you want to keep the dead from returning, you need to follow funerary rites of each respective nation. And concentrating just on the Lakota, Larry J. Zimmerman, who wrote a lot about this different funerary rites, noted that for the Lakota, you must do the following. Among the Lakota, Wanagi things of the shadow. Spirits are said to guard the graves and can harm anyone who disturbs the dead. Because the dead often suffered anguish at being separated from the living endeavored to ease their pain. The rituals accompanying death may be as simple as taboos in which the name of the dead cannot be uttered, or may involve demonstrating how much a person was missed by enacting public displays of grief. Among the Plains Indian groups, which is the Indians we cover because we live on the plains, mourners cut their hair and wear it short for a year, slash their arms or chest, cut off a fingertip, or wear mourning clothes. Many grieved for a period, and others carried out simple, gentle ceremonies such as offering food to ease the dead person's passage into the afterworld. In some tribes, people make lengthy speeches to the spirit of the deceased and request that he or she stays away from the living. So it's again the Lakota acknowledging that the spirits, ghosts, exist and trying not to interact with them and help them on to the afterworld.
Mm-hmm. And this isn't very unique as far as human civilization goes. I mean, Greeks, Romans, Egyptians all have the same traditions.
Yep.
They do their ceremonies with the dead, and by and large leave them alone. They're I think there isn't a lot of civilizations that want the dead to be around all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, you do have some exceptions like Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, in Mexico, where that one day they're expected to be there, and you're expected to respect them and pay them homage, whatever. But otherwise, even those cultures, they don't want nothing to do with the dead.
Yeah,
they avoid them. So
yeah. So even if you do all this, it's no guarantee that you're not going to see a ghost. It might just then hang out in the places it had been while it was alive. It will then pretty much just chill and not bother you unless you bother it. So you follow the rule of the bees. Don't bother the bees and they won't bother you. Yeah.
Stephen King rules is what we call them nowadays.
Oh, okay.
Just read enough Stephen King books and you'll know how to avoid all ghosts. You will.
Also remember, owls tended to be seen as bad omens across a variety of tribes. So now on to our story, and this one that I am going to read from comes from Native American Myth and Legends, edited by J.K. Jackson. And just so you know where it is and where you can find it. I did find quite a few the books that I reference on the Internet Archive that you could rent like a library book. So if y'all want to go track those down, you can. A young man went alone on the warpath. At length he reached a wood. One day, as he was going along, he heard a voice. He said, "I shall have company." As he was approaching a forest, he heard someone halloo. Behold, it was an owl. I didn't do that well. Can you make the owl sound?
Ooh.
There you go. That's what he heard. By and by he drew near another wood, and as night was coming on, he lay down to rest. At the edge of the trees he lay down in the open air. At midnight he was aroused by the voice of a woman. She was wailing, "My son, my son!" Still, he remained where he was and put more wood on the fire. He lay with his back to the fire. He tore a hole in his blanket large enough to peep through. It's exactly what I used to do. I didn't tear holes in my blanket, but when I was scared, I would wrap myself completely in a blanket with a little space where I could one eye could look out to see what was going on. I'm totally with this dude. Soon he heard twigs break under the feet of one approaching, so he looked through his blanket without rising. Behold, a woman of the olden days was coming. She wore a skin dress with a long fringe. A buffalo robe was fastened around her at the waist. Her necklace was of very large beads, and her leggings were covered with beads or porcupine work. Her robe was drawn over her head, and she was snuffing as she came. And I'm not exactly sure if the snuffing is what snuffing tobacco. I'm not sure if that's it or if she was sniffling.
I would consider it like just breathing heavily.
Yeah. Okay.
I like kind of like that, like, you know.
Well, crap, that scares me even more, Connor. I'm already hiding underneath this blanket.
Well, I mean,
and now I hear these sounds.
Well, I can see if she had beads like porcupine work. She kind of like snort, kind of like a porcupine, you know, just kind of like. Okay. Kind of like almost like your nose is in the dirt, you know, you're like making that really snorty, snuffling sound.
Now this story is suddenly scarier than when I read this and wrote this.
Kind of creepy.
Okay. The man lay with his legs stretched out, and she stood by him. She took him by one foot, which she raised very slowly. Then she let it go. It fell with a thud as though he were dead. She raised it a second time, then a third time. Still the man did not move. Then the woman pulled a very rusty knife from the front of her belt, seized his foot suddenly, and was about to lift it and cut it when up sprang the man. Crap. He said...
You got me there. It's like, I can only play dead until you pull out the knife. Damn it.
And it was rusty, too. And not just rusty, it was very rusty.
It's like, crap, I can play dead, but man, if you poke me with that, I'm going to have to yip.
Yeah. He said, "What are you doing?" Then he shot at her suddenly. She ran into the forest screaming, "Yun, yun, 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 yun." She plunged into the forest and was seen no more. I'm crapping my pants at that point in time if it's real life. Again, the man covered his head with his blanket, but he did not sleep. When day came, he raised his eyes. Behold, there was a burial scaffold with the blankets all ragged and dangling. He thought, "Was this the ghost that came to me?" Again he came to a wood where he had to remain for the night. He started a fire. As he sat there, suddenly he heard someone singing. He made the woods ring. The man shouted to the singer, but no answer was paid. The man had a small quantity of wasna, which was grease mixed with pounded buffalo meat and wild cherry. He also had plenty of tobacco. So when the singer came and asked him for food, the man said, "I have nothing." The ghost said, "Not so. I know you have some wasna." Don't interact with the ghosts. The man gave some of it to the ghost and filled his pipe. After the meal, when the stranger took the pipe and held it by the stem, the traveler saw that it was nothing but bones. There was no flesh. Then the stranger's robe dropped back from his shoulders. Behold, all his ribs were visible. There was no flesh on them. The ghost did not open his lips when he smoked. The smoke came pouring out through his ribs. When he had finished smoking, the ghost said, "Ho! We must wrestle together. If you can throw me, you shall kill the enemy without hindrance and steal some horses." The young man agreed, but first he threw an armful of brush on the fire. He put plenty of brush near the fire. Then the ghost rushed at the man. He seized him with his bony hands, which was very painful. But this mattered not. The man tried to push off the ghost, whose legs were very powerful. When the ghost was pulled near the fire, he became weak. But when he pulled the young man toward the darkness, he became strong. As the fire got low, the strength of the ghost increased. Just as the man began to get weary, the day broke. Then the struggle began again. As they drew near the fire again, the man made a last effort. With his foot, he pushed more brush into the fire. The fire blazed up again suddenly. Then the ghost fell, just as if he was coming to pieces. So the man won in wrestling. Also, he killed his enemy and stole some horses. It came out just as the ghost said. And that is why people believe what ghosts say.
You know, from the start there, from when they were wrestling, and he said, you know, he became more weak as he got to the darkness, and more strong as he got to the darkness, more weak as he got to the fire. That almost kind of sounded like a creationist kind of mythos. Almost, again, kind of going almost to like a Greek kind of thing, you know, like night and day, always struggling and fighting. It kind of almost had a mythos that kind of went along those lines. That was very interesting.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah. And so they were similar in that they both got to meet ghosts and there were ladies in both of them. But just interesting one. It seems like, whatever the ghosts tell you is true, that at least these kind of ghosts aren't messing with you. If they tell you this thing's going to happen, then that thing's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that you really shouldn't interact with them. I could tell you, I probably would have jumped up too when that first. I mean, he met two ghosts, and one was the lady, and then the other was the man that he wrestled with. But the lady, I can play dead for so long, but bring out a rusty knife, I'm done. I'm done. And speaking of done, that's going to do it for us for this episode. We have plenty more episodes to come this month with some spooky stories that probably will teach us all a lesson. And they're a little spooky, but also good to sit and reflect on what lesson they're trying to teach us and what we can learn from it and incorporate into our lives.
Yeah. Don't talk to ghosts.
Yeah, please don't talk to ghosts. And if you do, please don't bring the ghosts to my house.
Yeah, we don't want them.
No. So that's going to do it for us today. Come back next week for some more scary stories. For now, I'm Irene.
And I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.